All right, we turn now to the Xfinity mobile call-in line and bring in our friend Mina Kimes of ESPN and the Mina Kimes Show. Mina, how are you? Happy week one.
Oh, so happy. How are you guys feeling?
We're feeling good. We want to start with your most recent episode as you have done all of these like season previews. You got to finally stick the landing. The most interesting figures of this NFL season. No Eagles on there, so I do want to ask you, on the cutting room floor, who to you is the most interesting Eagle as we head into this season?
Bo stole this question from me.
I mean, it's a
really
pretty
upset that
obvious,
you
it's a pretty
stole this
easy
from me.
question. If I'm
Yeah,
doing the
listen to
intro, I
whole
gotta ask the
podcast,
question.
and you just sweep it out from under me.
It's a good question because the Eagles are so stacked and deep on both sides of the ball. It's actually kind of hard to pick an interesting player,
Right.
right? Like if you were asking me who is the biggest X factor, I might say whoever is playing cornerback opposite Quinion Mitchell, which I'm
Mhm.
sure we'll talk about. I think I'll go with I'm not gonna pick Jalen Hurts. I'll go with Kevin Patullo for this
Okay.
one, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there's very little angst about him replicating what happened the last time before
Yes.
the last coordinator switch after losing Shane Steichen. So I think I want to see early on if that belief in him is earned. And if he counters challenges during the season, like say they were to lose any of the main pieces on offense, can
Yeah.
he make adjustments? So that I think is going to be a big determinant of whether or not the Eagles repeat.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it has been an underdiscussed storyline in
Yeah.
Philadelphia. Much different than it was with Brian Johnson, and it does feel like there is an expectation that the offense is going to be a little bit more pass heavy. And how much
Yeah.
of that is Kevin Patullo versus Jalen Hurts getting his version of the offense out there? But there's no doubt that if things don't start great, very quickly the arrows are going to be pointed in his direction.
Yeah, I think the Jalen of it all probably informs that. I feel like we've learned that through the offensive coordinator changes, this sort of just becomes Jalen Hurts' offense more so than maybe 2 years ago. So, yeah, but I do think Kevin Patullo is a good one because if this offense does not look the way that it should, with all the amount of talent they have, we're going to be looking at him. So,
And the stakes are also very clear that if the offense is very good, there's a good chance that Kevin Patullo is a head coach next year.
Yeah, right. Jalen Hurts has a history of that, of guys moving on from him and becoming head coaches. And yeah, there's just also so few variables. Other than, I mean, on offense, it's just injuries to me.
Yeah.
And that would be the thing that you're worried about because it's such a top heavy team.
Agreed. Mina, we've given you as much time as we could, but we need your on the record Eagles prediction for the season. We want to talk about the game, but listen, this is the last chance we can ask you what you think is going to happen this season without having, the week to week minutia kind of coloring your prediction.
And just know that this is going to get clipped. And everybody's
I didn't
like,
do you any favors here, Mina. I apologize.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the Eagles win the division with relative ease, especially not that the Cowboys were going to challenge them for it, but I think the Micah Parsons trade makes that more likely. I have to stick to the prediction I just gave to ESPN.com, which is I sent the Packers to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know how much of that. I swear it's not recency bias. I was high at the Packers going to the playoffs before. I think part of me just does. I tend to like mix it up a little bit year to year,
course.
and want something a little bit different. I think though the way I will be honest about this, and I know Eagles fans don't want to hear this. Before the Micah Parsons trade, I had the Eagles in a tier of their own in the NFC. After the Micah Parsons trade, I bumped up the Packers into that tier. Does that mean that they're better than the Eagles? I think that they're
anything can,
close.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I
If
think
you could guarantee me that the Eagles were going to stay healthy wire to wire, I would probably pick the Eagles. I think the reason I picked the Packers a little bit more bet on some regression with regards to health and maybe Saquon Barkley.
Which is totally reasonable. I mean, it's very difficult to go to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. I think we can be honest about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and the Packers thing is interesting. Not the least of which reasons is they traded for Darian Kennard, who has won the Super Bowl all 3 of his years in the NFL. It feels a bit like a fait accompli, and we do need to circle back, Mina, on the Willie Lamkin of it all. I mean, what a call!
Oh, wow, I know. Oh my goodness.
It's very exciting. We are
Very
over the moon
exciting.
about it.
It's becoming a quick cult hero here.
I have a friend who I will not name who works for the team, and I sent him the picture, he was joking to me about like Willie Lamkin, if he ever does play, just being next to the starters on the Eagles offensive line, what that would visually look like. Obviously, Eagles fans want Cam Jordan to stay healthy, don't want him to play, but I'm just saying. And I sent him, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that picture of Splinter with the giant Ninja Turtles next to him. That's what it reminds me of. Like, because he's so much small. Like, it's funny because I think we all thought of Jason Kelce as being like this unusually short, you know, incredible.
Yes, which is a little overstated. He's not that small.
No, he's not that short. In fact, he's got like 4 inches of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we'll see what happens when he gets enrolled at Stoutland U. It is exciting.
It's very exciting.
Seeing him in the locker room for the first time, it was staggering. Like, he is significantly smaller than you would even expect.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's very, very exciting. Okay, let's get to the business at hand. We have a football game finally on Thursday night. Eagles-Cowboys. Let's start. Eagles have the ball against the Cowboys defense. Obviously, no Micah Parsons, but boy, I mean, you add Kenny Clark, and all of a sudden, it's a different game here.
It's over. Can we take a moment to appreciate like Jerry Jones picking the worst possible time to emphasize the Cowboys' run? Like going into playing the Philadelphia Eagles and telling the world this was trade was about run defense. We improved it. Kenny Clark is a monster. Poor Kenny Clark. Poor Kenny Clark.
Poor Kenny Clark.
He's a good player and like he's an okay run defender. He's solid, but like having to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles of all teams after Jerry calls his shot there just could not have timed this any worse.
You're absolutely right that there is no upside here for Kenny Clark. He gets thrown in. He's the guy they got for Micah Parsons. Okay. They couldn't even like trade Micah Parsons to a team that's going to have a high first-round pick. Like they trade him to a good team. Setting the timing aside and all the ways that they bungled this. But yeah, like Kenny Clark, if we're not like a top 10 run defense, it's all on Kenny. But I mean, listen, this was a disastrous run defense last year, going up against the Eagles offense. We know that they are going to try to run the ball. What is the most interesting part of this side of the matchup to you?
I also feel like Micah Parsons didn't play in one of those games against Philly. Am I wrong?
I believe that's right.
He missed the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, who knows? I thought he was the guy setting the entire team back in run defense. I can't even. Some of the cope is crazy.
It's crazy.
Okay.
Oh, but they're going to get Arch Manning, Mina. So it's all. This is all.
Right. By the way, I loved on the. I'm going to cut a little ad here. I got a code to read the All Philly website that someone there sent me, and I was reading an article. And it had a great quote from Jordan Mailata. I love it when NFL players are honest. And he was just like, yeah, I'm really glad that Micah Parsons we spend like half of our week game planning for him. And I'm like, thank you. Right. Yeah. Okay. So
by the way, the great reason to become a diehard, Mina's reading the articles, join $36 for the whole year. It's great. Fantastic.
And that was a great article and it had some really good insights,
I appreciate
including
that.
who the hell is playing cornerback too, which is something I'm hoping to glean from you guys. Okay, so this is an interesting one because, we all know the deal with Philadelphia. They make the maths impossible for you, right? If you sell out to stop the run, you play man coverage, they'll kill you on the outside, yada, yada. I think for the Cowboys, though, I'm actually very interested in how they approach that because they have a new defensive coordinator, Matty Eberflus, who is not really one to sell out to stop the run, and he is one to try to put a shell on opposing offenses. And I don't think they have the manpower on the back end to handle these receivers. I mean, the lost in all of this conversation about the Cowboys' defensive line is the secondary is a major problem on this team. You have Trevon Diggs saying, maybe I'm 75%. Cool. Even if you are 175%, you're replacing A.J. Brown, right? Deron Bland, maybe they play him inside, then you're opening up a gaping hole opposite him. So I think strategically, this is going to be an interesting one for Kevin Patullo. You have such a talent advantage across the board. How are you reacting in game to whatever the Cowboys, try to do to address, one of their many gaping weaknesses? If they sell out to stop the run, I think the Eagles will kill them through the air. Mm-hmm. If they don't, if they actually do play a little bit more split safety, you kill him on the ground. And so I think it's a very tasty matchup, but it'll be a fun one for Patullo early on to show that he is a good game planner and in-game manager.
So I do wonder if there's some shootout potential for this game, especially looking at this Cowboys receiving core, the questions the Eagles have at outside corner opposite Quinyon Mitchell. What do you expect from this Cowboys offense, I guess, in the season opener and really just this year in general?
Other side of the ball is much more interesting to me because I think, to your point, this is part of the reason why the Micah Parsons trade was so mind-boggling to me. I think the Cowboys' offense has the potential to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So, right, like this is not like a crappy team rebuilding without a quarterback. They traded for a wide receiver 2/1B in George Pickens, and I think he has the potential, to your point, to give Philadelphia some problems. Is it Adoree Jackson? Like, you tell me, guys. You're the experts.
Seems like it'll be Adoree Jackson, and
Okay.
it seems like maybe that won't be a long-term solution for them, but I think they're going to go into the year with Adoree outside corner. Yeah.
So I mentioned I'm not sure how Eberflus will approach it. I have to think Vic is going to really dare Dallas to run the ball and ask his guys up front to win, where they have more of a talent advantage. I think. I think the Cowboys obviously have a superstar guard in Tyler Smith, but there are questions elsewhere on the interior of the offensive line. Whereas through the air, I think that's where Dallas wants to live. Like every game they want to get one-on-ones for either Lamb or Pickens. It'll be interesting to me, just from a matchup perspective, to see how they deploy the two of them, right? Given that Dallas, given that Philly has a superstar outside, a superstar in the slot, and then a big question mark. What do you do with your two receivers? Are you putting them on the same side? Are you playing sides? Are you putting them in motion? The Eagles corners they're not going to follow. So I think that's going to be really fascinating for Brian Schottenheimer, because that's really their only chance, in my mind, of competing in this one, is if they can continue to, like you said, keep it high scoring by winning through the air.
It's a really interesting problem, because it's, do you lean from the Cowboys perspective into like what makes your guys great, or do you focus more on where the other team is weak? Because CeeDee Lamb is so good in the slot.
Yeah.
But that means he goes up against Cooper DeJean, and that's a little bit more of an even matchup. Whereas if you just have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the outside, one of them is going to get to go up against Adoree Jackson, and so you're going to have some advantage there. I'm sure we'll see all of that throughout the game, but it's a really interesting question for them to solve.
And if they play those two guys on the outside, that opens the question: does Quinyon Mitchell follow CeeDee Lamb more often in the game?
Very exciting stuff. Interesting to see how it turns out. How do you feel about the Cowboys' offensive line? You mentioned Tyler Smith, 60% Tyler.
Yeah, so many Tylers. It's an interesting drafting strategy. They're okay. Tyler Smith is a stud. He's one of the best guards in the NFL. But I thought some of the young players played decently well last year. Guyton's up and down, and then he's coming off of the injury.
Yeah.
As a rookie, so it's a lot of youth. I think the Cowboys' offensive line is going to be good by the end of the year, but it's week one, and obviously there's going to be a lot of attention paid to Jalen Carter, right? So if you're Dallas and you've got Smith opposite Carter, you got two guys on Carter. You're getting one-on-ones for Nolan Smith, who was so fantastic rushing next to Carter last year. So yeah, I think you get there's opportunities for everybody who's not Jalen Carter, right? So I think this is a good test for this, young, turned over Eagles pass rush. Moro Jomo. Am I saying his name? Moro Jomo?
Ojamo.
It's anybody's guess at this point.
I was corrected recently.
Yeah.
They were like, no, it's a Jomo. I'm like, what?
Last year, it was a Jumma.
It's a moving target.
He changed it again.
It's a moving target. Moro. J-Lig's Hunt, much easier to say. And then Smith, I think just proving that he can be the dude without Josh Sweat. I mean, he was, but obviously things have changed. It's a good test, I think. They're not. I would say right now I'd probably have them about average as far as offensive line goes. They could be better by the end of the season, but yeah, you definitely want to see that young front show that you were right to believe in them.
One thing we have talked about, and this is something that the Eagles have emphasized, is that the first month of the season is sort of like fact-finding for your own team, right? It's getting to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. I think about last year's Eagles season when, after the first month of the season, like, okay, we're going to just turn into a running team, and we're going to bring Cooper DeJean in. We're going to change the defense just a little bit. As someone who is following the whole league, how do you approach like what you are watching the first month of the season, and knowing that it's not exactly what these teams are going to look like, as the season goes on?
Yeah, you have to really take it on a team by team basis, I think. One thing that's challenging for me, or at least a lot of my work is very stats based, and early on the stats don't exist, or they're kind of not real. So you do lean more into film in the first few weeks of the season, and you're rather, let me rephrase that, you're more wary of what the stats are saying Right? Like the first 2 weeks of the season, the New Orleans Saints were.
I was well, the Clint Kubiak
the example
offensive
that
genius.
comes
This is
up.
the
Yeah,
first thing
yeah.
that comes
So-
to mind. Yes.
So it is funny too, because I think like that's why it sucks for Cowboys fans, or for the Cowboys. Like maybe they will be better in run defense this year. You just
Yeah.
can't base it on week
Right.
1 against the Philadelphia Eagles, right? But yeah, I think you just have to put everything in perspective. Okay, if it's a unit that's mostly the same, like if the Eagles offense looks bad the first few weeks of the season, which I don't think is going to happen, you're actually concerned because it's the same group, right? Like I think that matters. But if the front doesn't look as good as they were last year, you got to give them a little bit of time.
Yeah.
They're young players. So cornerback too, is that an issue that needs to be solved? You figure that out early on. So I think it's just about putting things in context, considering continuity and the strength of opponents and who they're playing, what kind of quarterbacks they're playing. Like Cam Ward, week 1 has the Denver Broncos. Just nobody make a judgment on Cam Ward after week 1. Things like that. You got to know who the opponents are.
And then you said something earlier that caught my ear. You know the Eagles will go and win the division easily, and you mentioned the Cowboys. You did not mention the Commanders, and we here at this desk are betting against the Commanders. To me, they are screaming reversion for a lot of reasons. They're old, the 4th down success last year, all of these things. Jane Daniels is awesome, and he might be good enough to overtake all of that. But everything else to me is screaming comeback. What's your Commanders take?
Yeah, I think I am a little bit lower than the consensus, at least based on what some of my colleagues I've seen saying about them, for the reasons you describe. The main reason for me is just skepticism of the defense. I just look at this depth chart and I see holes in talent. I don't know where the consistent pass rush is going to come from. There are young players I like that they drafted, but that's more speculative than anything. Can Lattimore return to form? Can Trey Omas contribute right away? I don't know. Bobby Wagner is the year older at linebacker. Like I said, the pass rush. So, and then the run defense, which obviously, the Eagles stampeded all over them in the playoffs. I don't look at this depth chart and see fixes. So to me, like, I think they'll still be competitive. I'm such a believer in the young quarterback. I think the offense too. I like a lot of the moves that they made, both in terms of like adding veterans, but also drafting to develop there. I just think defensively, they look a little one-sided to me.
All right. Well, Mina Kimes, we look forward to talking to you in a couple weeks as we have 2 games to talk about. But enjoy week 1, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mina.
Talk to you guys later.
All right. Back with more on the PHLY Eagles podcast after this.